calling in. As you know, we're joined by Director of Athletics, Greg McGarity, and Deputy Director of Athletics, Josh Brooks. They'll be glad to take your questions regarding stadium capacity and the ticket plan that was distributed earlier today to season ticket holders. I'm going to begin the call by calling on certain ones of you for your questions, and then if you'll remember to direct your question to either Greg or Josh, and they may defer to the other where appropriate. And then we'll save the last part of the call for anyone to jump in with questions. Also, a reminder to mute your microphones to help eliminate the background noise. So let's go ahead and get started, and let's take the first question from Mark Weiser.
Hey, Greg, Josh, everybody. So I guess by my math, it was like 18.55 to 23.100-ish. Is that what the numbers that you're seeing in the 20 to 25? I don't know if you're counting suites differently, but and do you think that the plan you have, the 20 to 25%, will pretty much stay where it is?
I do, unless things change, Mark. Unless the pandemic goes in a different direction. But right now, we're confident in our plan. We're in the neighborhood of where our peers are in the conference. I know some schools have not announced that, but all the information we have and all of our calls together, we're all in the same ballpark there. So as of today, as of 12:02 on August the 19th, we feel good about our plan.
Okay, let's go to Chip Towers.
Muted. Chip, unmute yourself, man. Good luck.
Sorry about that. I always forget it every time. Ever since this news came out, my social media feed and emails blown up with people wanting to know if there's going to be tailgating. Has that been decided yet? And if not, when?
Well, we outline in our note to our donors that we'll make that decision a little bit later. I know Alabama's already come out and said no tailgating. Arkansas is there as well. We're going to wait and see. We don't have to make that decision right now, but certainly as we near the first game, we'll make those decisions based on tailgating, and we'll just wait and make that decision a little bit later.
If I could follow, you are selling parking though, right? I mean, the people who get tickets also get parking?
Well, our parking plan is still in play, correct, for those that have tickets to the game. So it's not open. You've got to have a parking pass and a ticket to get into our parking lots this year.
Thanks.
Go to Mike Griffith.
Yeah, Greg, I know the SEC office said they would leave it up to the schools as far as the team walk, the dog walk. Is there a decision on that, or is that kind of where the tailgating is at to be determined?
Yeah, we don't know yet, Mike, on the dog walk. Obviously, to practice social distancing, that's not really conducive to the dog walk as we know it today. So it's really the only way our team can get in the stadium now. So I'm sure it'll be modified at some degree, but we just haven't zeroed in on those plans when we start in October.
Just to follow up on that, Greg, I had someone ask me about secondary market tickets. The way that these tickets are being distributed, is there a plan or an idea how that might happen?
No, I mean, it's just like a regular season game. Those that will receive tickets, they do with them what they choose, and some go to the StubHubs of the world, and we really can't control that, but I'm sure there'll be some of that out there, but that's something that's really out of our control.
Let's go to Seth Emerson.
Greg, obviously the first game is not till October, and it seems like every day is a year at this point in terms of how events change. How fluid is all this? How much of this may have been, let's get a plan out there, but an expectation that it could go to much less, or it could grow as far as capacity?
Yeah, I think we all have to be flexible because we know things change rapidly in this world, but to really get everything done, and all fairness to our donors and to our ticket office and to the processes in place, we had to let some information out and basically go forward. And we hope this is the plan that we end up with, but as we all know, things change rapidly, and if we are in a refund mode, and let's just say we don't have fans, and I hope that's not the case, but if it is, we'll be in another refund mode in play as well as that time.
Let's go to Anthony Dasher.
And Greg, just for clarity on the mask, I know you have to have them going into the stadium and on the concourse, but once you're seated in the stadium in the standing, you do not have to wear them?
Yeah, I'm going to defer to Josh. I know he's been working on the game op details.
Okay.
Josh?
Yeah, so thanks, Dash. So according to the SEC information, you need it when you enter, move about the stadium, but if you can maintain 6 feet of social distancing within the stadium, you do not have to wear the mask. Now, we still have to work with local campus officials if any of that changes on campus and work that. And that's important as we laid out the stadium, our blocks, you can maintain the social distancing. So at this point, we would anticipate that once you make it to your seat, you can take your mask off. But as you go to move about, you have to put your mask back on, and we'll have signage everywhere reminding everyone to mask up as they move about ingress, egress, or just move throughout the concourse.
And just a quick follow-up, how difficult, though, might this be to enforce? I mean, you don't have people actually on the lookout for people, not doing such?
Yeah, so that's going to be on our stadium staff, and we're actually going to talk to Claude about any media that don't get in to work the game can come help us with stadium security with that as well. If you don't want to get in. But no, that's going to be hard, Dash. But we've got great staff that we work with that and people have been great so far. So we anticipate the Dog Nation being good about that.
How about Paul Newberry? Paul, you have a question?
Let me unmute here. Okay.
You unmuted?
He's still muted.
Well, I hit the button once there. Is that now you can hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, we got you.
All righty. Love technology. Greg, how important is it for the school's budget to have fans? Obviously, 23,000 is not 92,000, but what does this mean for your finances if you're able to have fans for these 4 home games?
Well, it helps somewhat, and we'll really get into a lot of detail at our board meeting, because we'll provide, now that we have a plan, we'll provide that to our finance committee and have those discussions and then move into the full board meeting, which will be on September the 11th. But needless to say, the revenue drop is significant because of just 4 games in Sanford Stadium, as well as the Florida game in Jacksonville, which is our home game this year. But all of the costs involved with testing and all of the PPE that we'll be providing in the stadium and measures there, our expenses are going to be pretty close to what they normally would be in the stadium. So even though the revenue is going to be reduced, I think that there's no question that our expenses will be rather high to make sure this happens, which I know we're all preparing for and having everything available to our fans as they enter the stadium this year.
Greg, one more too, a follow-up. Any concern about trying to do this? I know as you said, it's kind of keeping with what all the other teams in the SEC are doing, but given where the numbers are in Georgia, and now Georgia being called kind of the worst in the nation at the moment with the pandemic, how risky is this to try to do this with the way things are on today? As you say, we can only say today, but yeah. Where they are today.
I mean, we've got, we're not even out of August yet, so we've got plenty of time. We've got the whole month of September to evaluate things, and so we just need to be able to pivot if necessary, but long time before we have our first home game.
Thank you.
Question from Jake Rowe. Jake, do you have a question?
I do not have a question.
All right, let's go Dean Legge.
Greg, I wanted to ask about the COVID fund. Is that something that's fully tax deductible for folks who choose to do that? How is that different than typical contributions?
getting into territory I'm not really that familiar with, but really it's a way to help us make ends meet. And again, we'll be discussing this at our board meeting, but we all know that every school is going to be in the red this year just because of football capacities and things of that nature. So I think we've got several ways for our donors to make decisions, whether they want a full refund or partial refund or keep the dollars in play this year. But we certainly don't want this problem to affect us down the road in year 2, 3, or 4. And so we've got a way that, no donor is really going to be out a dollar, because they can either have several choices on how to, like I said, either receive a refund, partial refund, or just keep their money in there and roll it over into a donation for this year. But, we'll see how many of our donors opt out. I know those numbers will be significant. And individuals will know that in 2021, there's no penalty for opting out. They'll still retain all the seat locations and privileges that they received this year.
And one last thing on the money that the rainy day, what you call a rainy day fund. Yep. Can you anticipate the percentage of that you think y'all will have to spend this year because of the ticket situation?
No, it'll help us, and Dean, that's what we'll talk to with our finance committee, and we've got a lot of financial horsepower on that group to help advise us as we move forward, but we'll have a plan moving forward for presentation at our board meeting.
William Newland from Red and Black. Do you have a question?
I do. I wanted to ask if there were plans to have tickets go out to students this fall, if there would be a student section in Stanford.
Absolutely. Josh, why don't you take that one?
Yeah, William. So it was important to us early on that we maintain the student section, and they did not, their footprint was not affected. We've actually increased their footprint slightly, because if you look at some of their sections in the past, like 307 was half students, half donors, and 144 may have been a little visitors in there. Those are now all students. We want clean sections. So the footprint of the students remains exactly the same, actually a little bigger. And we've already applied some methodology to how we would lay it out, similar to what we do with our donors. Now we're going to meet with student leadership here. Now that the plan is out, we've got a meeting set for actually today, and we'll start meeting with more student leadership to confirm the allocation plan, making sure they're comfortable with what we're working through. But yeah, we want to maintain that section for them as well.
Okay. Quick follow-up. Is there plans to have the Red Coat Band play in the games?
That's yet to be determined. How the bands, I know the Medical Advisory Task Force is providing some guidance to the athletic directors as we move forward. So that's yet to be determined as far as how band and cheerleaders would function this year.
Mark Bradley, do you have a question?
I do. Greg, I know that you've been following this obviously since the beginning of March, and enthusiasm has waxed and waned over these past 5 months. And today it obviously is not September 26th, it's August 19th. But as of August 19th, what is your level of confidence that there's going to be a football season?
Mark, I can really only address what's going on within our program as far as the way our young people that are here now, football, volleyball, soccer, that are training in cross country, is they've just done a marvelous job in adhering to protocol and doing everything we've asked them to do. Now, what will the general student population do? That's up for grabs there, because we've seen what's happened at other institutions, and we open class tomorrow, so we expect to see some spikes. I don't think anybody would be shocked about that, but we feel confident within our building that we're doing everything we can do, and certainly we can't control those circumstances that are not under our umbrella, but you just got to hope that people, if they want to see sports played, if they want to see students remain on campus and those things, they're going to have to adhere to the protocols in place. It's obviously not like it was when we were in school. We were all students at one time, and who's to say how we would have conducted ourselves back then in a pandemic, but it's difficult, it's a change, and you've got to have buy-in, and certainly our student athletes have bought in. We're just hoping that the general population will buy in as well and make it as safe as possible to continue to work towards play.
Thanks.
Jeff Schultz, you there?
I am here, thanks. Greg and Josh, thanks for doing this. Greg, just for clarity, as you know, the Falcons canceled or said no fans in their home games in September.
Right.
I think their home dates were September 13th and the 27th. I think your first home game is scheduled for October 3rd, which is effectively 6 days later. So, again, just for clarity, have you reached a different conclusion than they have, or is it just the fact that it's 6 days later, or just trying to figure out how you reached you've come out basically with a different decision than they did?
Well, we listen as athletic directors and presidents have to our medical advisory task force, which really guide us on a lot of situations on the playing field and in our locker rooms and in our facilities. And we're able to, we think, practice social distancing in a way that will allow fans to come in and be as safe as possible. So I'm not sure what the Falcons are basing their decisions on. I'm not sure what their metrics are, but we feel like this, with the way we mapped out the stadium, that we can maintain social distance and still abide by the CDC guidelines as far as keeping people as safe as possible. And again, people can opt out. I mean, it's people elect to come to our games, so those that do come certainly would have a level of risk as they move towards the stadium. But again, we're thinking with the numbers that we have, it's going to be like a rainy G day. Somebody mentioned the other day that may be what the crowd looks like. So you've got a stadium of 90,000 and you're populating it less than, with only 25% in the stadium. It's going to look very sporadic for sure.
Tony Barnhart, you have a question?
I do. Greg, as you pointed out, your first game is not until October 3rd. Is there a point in September where there's a go, no-go decision that has to be made, or can this decision to play or not to play go right up until the very day?
Well, Tony, I really don't know. I mean, we have AD meetings almost every day now on Zoom, and, we learn different things every day. So I don't think there's a drop dead date. We don't have one designated as we have to make a decision by this day because, we don't have to right now. But I just think we look at the information daily and listen to what our other peer institutions are doing, and as well as the Big 12 and the ACC and the AAC and everybody else is playing, and sort of keep tabs on everyone else. But I just think it's too early to put a drop dead date. I think it would have to be the week of the game at the latest. But we'll just wait and see what develops on a daily basis.
Thanks, Greg.
You bet.
Vance Levy, do you have a question?
Hey, Greg. What was the decision not to have road tickets? Was that an easy decision for the 14 institutions? And how was that made?
Yeah, Vance, as far as that was perhaps the quickest decisions we made as a group is to limit that because of the number of people traveling. We wanted to basically make sure that we could maximize the opportunity for our home fans because we knew that we were all going to be at a very low capacity level. So we wanted to make sure that our fans, our students, our faculty, staff would be maximized, and probably the ability to travel is going to be minimized anyway for fans attending games. So that was something we all, that was a very quick 14-0 vote on making that application for the year.
Well, and to follow up on that, clearly Greg Sankey, his leadership appears to have gotten everybody on the same page. Have y'all had pretty much unanimous, and I'm not asking for votes, but throughout this process? And what's his leadership meant to keeping things at least heading towards the season?
Well, it's Greg's a seasoned veteran. He's been involved in conference situations for a number of years, even long before he became commissioner. And, Greg's really brilliant. He's got a mind that is very learned as far as his ability to sense the room, sense the climate on a national level. You think about how complex his job is. He's got to work with 14 presidents or chancellors, 14 athletic directors, 14 head coaches, and 15 sports that some are vocal more than others. So his level of I would say, a calm approach has really calmed the room. And certainly we've had lively discussions, but we're not to the point to where we're adversarial in the room. I think everyone is really on the same page on wanting to do things in a safe manner. Each campus is different as we go through how they're handling certain things. But I think the strength of the conference is that, sometimes an 8-6 vote may be a 14-0 vote at the end of the day. We all understand that we're a conference. We may not get our way every time, but the great thing about our conference is we don't talk about it after the fact. I think that's one strength of the conference is that we keep those meetings private. We try to make sure that we all are making the best decisions possible, but they're tough because there's certain situations there to where you may feel really strongly about something and you voice that in the meeting, but when it's all over, we move on to the next topic. So I think it's the room has changed so much since I've been an athletic director over the 10 years. So there are a lot of new bodies, a lot of new faces, a lot of new voices, some more vocal than others, but I think it's a very healthy room, and we've been able to keep the ship moving forward in a very professional manner. And a lot of that all the credit really is to Greg Sankey and his staff. I mean, Charlie Hussey, Mark Womack, William King, Tiffany Daniels. I can't imagine what their work life has been like with everything they've had to juggle, trying to keep 14 schools happy.
Thanks.
Jed May, do you have a question?
Yeah, Greg, I was wondering, I think you mentioned PPE in the stadium earlier. What does that plan look like in terms of, adding hand sanitizer stations, maybe masks and stuff like that? And how much did the ability to have those supplies factor into how many fans you plan to allow in the stadium this fall?
Yep, Josh, why don't you run with that one?
Yeah, so that's going to be a big part of our operation this year. We're going to have hand sanitizer stations everywhere throughout the stadium. All of our staff are masked up. All of the concession workers, face shields, masks, gloves. It was very important to think about all those things and follow all the CDC guidelines as you talk about concessions, restrooms, ingress, egress. That was what kind of gave us confidence to move forward with this plan, knowing that with a crowd of this size, the operations at the concessions, the restrooms will be easy. The ingress and egress will be easy. We can manage that. Like Greg said, a crowd of around 20,000 in a stadium that can seat 92 makes it more manageable to get around. So I feel really good about our planning. We're gonna be deep cleaning. We've got a custodian assigned to every single restroom who's going to be constantly wiping down touch points. We're going to disinfect all the restrooms the day of the game, all common areas. So I feel really good about the plan, but it's going to take, we're still working through it, and the execution on the day of is going to be important. But I feel very good about our staff, just from what I've seen so far of how we've managed all of our athletic facilities these last few months. It gives me great confidence that we can do the same thing at Sanford.
Thank you.
David Pascal?
Hey, Greg, I was wondering, does the 20 to 25%, does that pertain to the Florida game as well? Will they be 8,500 to 10,000 on each side, or when might a decision be made on that, given that you said we've got a lot of time till late September, a whole lot of time till early November?
Yeah, David, and right now I think the Jaguars are working with 18%. 18%. Josh, isn't that about right? Maybe
I think it's about, in that range, 18 to 20, probably around 18,000 on their capacity.
So we'll, if their figures change or what have you, we'll abide by those. But right now, we're following their directives that they have in the stadium as per the Jaguars.
Thank you.
You bet.
Okay, we're going to take a few minutes and just open things up for questions from anyone. If you just remember to unmute yourself, hopefully we won't get too much overlap, but go ahead and fire your questions away on first come, first serve.
Hey, I wanted to ask Josh, this is D. Nuggy. As it relates to game day, are y'all going to be passing out masks to ticket holders who don't have them / won't wear them? How does that work?
Okay. Yeah, so we're fully prepared for someone to show up and either forgot their mask or their mask may have been damaged or fallen off in the process. So we're going to plan to have extra masks at each gate ready to hand out for any fans who need one.
Yeah, a couple of questions. Just one, can you detail on the Florida game exactly how ticket distribution will be decided for that? And I don't think I caught exactly how many student tickets will be distributed for each home game.
Yeah, students is over 3,000 per game for the student body. Their normal block is 16,000, so it'll be affected just like the other buckets are for faculty and staff and donors. And what was your other question, Chip?
About the Florida game, obviously dealing with a different number. How will those get distributed?
Yeah, we would do that just like we do for the regular season game there. Obviously, you have less tickets, but the distribution process would be consistent with our regular road games.
I apologize if it's already been covered, but is there any mechanism for possibly increasing the attendance over the course of the season if things were to go really well?
You know, Brandon, I'm sure if that were the case, we could, perhaps sell single game tickets. There have been no single game tickets available thus far, so there's no one that's really bought a single game ticket because they aren't available. We've just been dealing with season tickets, but I just think we have to be ready to pivot on both sides, and if we can go up, that'd be great. But we don't anticipate that, but that doesn't mean we couldn't pivot to that way, just as we could pivot the other way as far as attendance in the stands.
Thank you.
Greg, is there any scenario in place where these games be played with no fans, or does it have to be safe enough for fans to attend to play the games?
Jay, I think everything is on the table. I just think we have to be ready to pivot every way if the numbers are where we can't do it and we're being advised not to do it. Certainly, that would affect attendance. So, like we said, I think we've got to be ready to pivot. And as we mentioned in our messaging, is that a healthy and a safe campus is the highest priority. So if we have to pivot, everybody would understand that. But sure, I think every possibility is on the table.
Thank you.
Yeah, I got knocked off for a couple minutes on the web here. Wanted to ask, were any local or state health officials consulted about this decision for you guys?
Josh, you want to run all the meetings?
Yeah, we've consulted with local officials, we've got a group here on campus, the PMAB group that has evaluated all the campus operations. I met with that group. I meet with local campus officials that, the normal game operations group that we meet with, Steve Harris, Jimmy Williamson, to review our plans and kind of, give a second set of eyes. We also talk to our peers throughout the state, throughout the country. You'd be surprised how much even rivals, how much we work together to talk through these things, because, this is not a thing about competitive advantage. This is about keeping people safe and maximizing our opportunities. So we weren't shying away from any good idea we could find anywhere. So we've worked with, like I said, schools across the country and really a lot of officials here, especially on campus.
A couple of questions, Greg or Josh, don't know who this might be for, but how arduous a task was it to find a formula to accommodate students, mid-level donors, high-level donors? That's part one. And part two, this may seem silly, but a group of four comes in, and you said you're reassigning locations based on social distancing, but is that group of four going to be social distanced? Or can that group of four, will they be sitting side by side?
Yeah, but before Josh answers Josh was the point person for how to socially distance the stadium, and I'm sure he's got a lot of other staff that have their fingerprints on this. But really, you get Josh, you get Matt Borman, Tim Kearley, Stephanie Ransom. this has so many fingerprints on it that it was really a tremendous effort, because we ran all type of models before ending up with this model. I mean, we all had 50% models. We had different percentages that we went through. So credit to Josh and the working group for determining some of those things. And I think they've done as good a job as could be done. And Josh, you may run with it as far as the other questions that Roger was asking.
Yeah. This actually started way back, probably in April and May, of me just literally mapping out the stadium and running different models and looking at different theories of do you kill every other row, do you stagger, and literally had to map them out and do counts and see which was the most efficient. Because the thing about Sanford Stadium is it's not just a congruent rectangle of seats. So row 1 may be 25 seats wide, row 60 may be 40 seats wide. So any theory you put into place, you've got to take into account that it's going to change as you go up in a section. So I really looked at a bunch of different models. I even went and did field measurements. Even had to break out some old math I haven't used in many years, broke out the Pythagorean theorem and calculated the seat density and width. And actually, you factor in the pitch as you talk about difference and creating that separation, because you've got an 11-inch pitch gap between each seat. It allows you to factor in a separation. So the key was maintaining the 6-foot block, the separation between each block, right? So then you could get into, well, what kind of blocks do you want to do? Do you want to do 2s, 3s, 4s, 5s, 6s? We looked at a first model that included 2s all the way to 8s. But really, when you think about a clean allocation system that'd be simple and easy to operate for our ticket office and for donors to understand in a fair system, it was better to go with 2s and 4s. And really, the 4s is the main block of our ticket base anyway. So that's the most consistent. That's the one you want to use the most of. And 4s is definitely more efficient than 2s, because every time you put a 2 in, you got to create that separation, right? So it was really about, making the 4s work, and then you could throw in some 2s as it makes sense on the end of certain aisles where you may have 2 seats at the end. But really, we put a lot of time into it. I got to thank our staff here, Kevin Welch, Joe McCullum, and Matt McGarity, that we literally hand through every single section of the stadium, seat by seat, to go through it. Because at this point, you wanted to keep it safe, and you didn't want to waste a single seat. So it really took a lot of time and meticulous effort. Now, rephrase your question again about when you come in a block of 4, what would happen if you get separated?
Well, no, what you're telling me is a season ticket holder that has 4 seats together. You may put them in a different location based on, but those 4 seats are side by side.
Correct. So we're asking the assumption of the ticket holder that when they come in, they're coming in a group of 4 from the same household, or a group that's been together that does not need to socially distance from each other. But outside of that, you can guarantee that you'll have the space in between those blocks.
Yeah.
Josh, this is obviously less important than health and safety, but when it comes to meetings about how to maintain some sense of home field advantage, whether it's pumping in crowd noise or using the sound system to play more music or congregating fans so that they can be heard by the players, have there been discussions about how you have a home field advantage when you have so few fans in the stadium?
We've talked about that a little bit. I can tell you from my Louisiana Monroe days that 18 to 20,000 can make some noise in a stadium, and I think that our fans are pretty lively. So I think no matter what we get in there, they're going to make noise. But looking through it across the world, you've seen I think some baseball leagues overseas have done some deals where people can go into an app and make noise, and it goes through the sound system. So all those things have been brought up, but I don't know. I don't know if that's feasible, and I don't, you have to get into the conference regulations on pumping in sound and things like that. But that's just something we'll get to further down the road than right now.
I think you'll see, I know that'll be the next thing we talk about as a group of athletic directors, is how to maybe mirror what Major League Baseball, and we don't know what the NFL is going to do, but be able to, or the NHL, to be able to see how we can maybe mirror some of those opportunities to move forward and try to create a little bit more atmosphere in the facility.
Got time for maybe a couple more questions. Anybody?
Greg or Josh, the Sky Suites is a population that's already seemingly kind of separated from the main area of the stadium itself. Is there a plan for those suites, and will that count toward the percentage of capacity?
Right. They'll be right at half capacity because they are separated from the general population. So as we work with our suites, if the suite had 16 seats, they'll be able to go to 8. But again, it's the assumption, just like in our groups before that Josh just mentioned, it'll be a group that the the suite holder would either invite or not invite, and basically they would sort of be in charge of their own suite, but they'll be at 50% capacity.
Josh, you had mentioned the student sections will be completely separated, like they won't be mixed with any season ticket holders. Is that to help prevent the spread maybe to students and then throughout campus? Is that the reason behind that?
Well, no, it was really just more for, I mean, it helps with that, but it was really more about allocation and having a clean section to where we can know this is the student section, and we may have a different method of seating in there. So it really, that is one of the byproducts of it, but that was the main reason. The main reason was keeping the student footprint the same. That way we could tell the student body, look, your footprint is not impacted. You've still got your same section. Now we've got to go in and make sure to keep you safe within that section. But and that's going to require a lot of work. It's going to require a lot of work from the student leadership to help us, communicate that to the students as they come in there. We're going to have to help keep them distance where they can't just pull up into one group. So that's going to take a lot of communication and work, but we're prepared for that.
Okay, so there probably wouldn't be small groups of maybe 2 or 4 students sitting together, like with maybe.
There could be, yeah. So that's the thing that's a little tricky, right? Because we don't allocate students in 2s and 4s, and we don't allocate based on who's roommates with who. The allocation process has always been about number of hours and students, freshmen, seniors, et cetera. So that does make it complicated, but talking to our peers and reading through what some other schools have done, they're all going to small groups and basically saying we may have a pot of 2 or 4 or 6, and as you come from maybe a Greek group or another group or a dorm, you can sit with your roommate or your relative, things like that. So it's going to be a little mix of all of it, but at the same time, we've got plenty of space to work with within those sections because, like Greg said, going from 16,000 down to 3, it's plenty of room for them to spread out and maintain their distance.
Okay, we need to wrap this up, but do appreciate everybody calling in and participating, and thanks to Greg and Josh for their time and being available, and I hope everybody has a great rest.
Mm-hmm.